older men in Singapore are at a higher risk of isolation than women. That's according to a study by the Intercontinental Alliance for Integrated Care. It adds that women fare better in old age because they draw strength from family and close relationships. And to find out why aging differs for men and women, we have with us in studio the lead author of this study, Associate Professor Justina Tan from the Singapore University of Social Sciences. And Justina, great to have you in studio with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now let's start first of all with what exactly you're hoping to find with this study and with regard to aging in men, perhaps.
Okay, the study surveyed about 1,000 older adults aged 55 to 84 across domains such as health, finances, relationship and social connections. We also conducted in-depth interviews to explore how seniors actually adapt and cope in everyday life. So one of the findings that we had is that women tend to be more connected with their communities, actually having their caregiving roles, whereas men actually may struggle a little bit after retirement, especially if their relationships are tied to work.
That's interesting. So one of your key findings here is that older men, especially those aged 75 to 84, need more help after retirement. Why are older men more vulnerable?
I wouldn't call them more vulnerable, but I think that they are actually more reserved in some sense. Actually, when we did the interviews, and some of these older men said that they don't really like going to active aging centres because they find that it's a place where people tend to complain, but they like to engage differently. For example, they probably like to have some technical workshops, some other interests that may differ from the ladies' interests.
Yeah, so what does this mean for families then, especially if you have, say, a parent who is retired and maybe your mom is willing to go out and mingle in the active aging centres, but maybe your father is not as willing.
Right.
How would the findings in this study help you relate better to people in the family?
Okay, I think first of all, we must understand whether it's men or women, they want agencies. They want to have a say in their lives. So actually, we don't take over the story from them, the authorship of the story. So if your mom likes to go out, encourage her, let her stay active, let her do what she wants, because it's the ability to have choices in life that makes them cope better with aging. Whereas for men, I don't think that it's a must to shove them to go into some activities. I think the intergenerational part should come in. Talk to them, understand their voice, because a lot of time we tend to impose on our views on what they should or should not be doing. So I think that is a message that we want to send.
Yeah, so that brings up the idea of mastery, as the study also finds, right? Because it's the idea of having control of your life, as you mentioned, not having your family member take over the reins, so to speak.
Yeah.
That in the study has been found to be a key predictor of successful aging.
Right.
Can you tell us more and what tips you might have for older men and women also to cultivate more mastery in their retirement?
I think mastery is not cultivated when you're just aging. Actually, one of the key things we found is to start preparing yourself early. So mastery is actually having the confidence, having the ability to do what you want. So we found that the earlier you start preparing for aging, the more mastery you have. Okay, so for example, saving a bit more, taking more interest in actually keeping yourself healthy, thinking about what to do in life. So mastery is not something that you acquire overnight. It is actually being developed over time. So for women and men, I wouldn't even say that, to me, aging is not just about decline. It is a stage of its own growth. So mastery in that sense enable people to cope with the challenges as they contend with them in later life.
Well, for a lot of retired older men, they might find it suddenly quite destabilizing to go from a routine 9 to 5 for decades and suddenly in retirement to have a lot of freedom and a lot of autonomy.
Yes.
So how does the study's findings allow us to understand that shift better? And how do you think the men in that situation can adjust better and more healthily to a new schedule?
Right. I think one key thing is that a lot of men's, their identity is anchored to work, is tied to work. So I think one of the recommendations is also having phased retirement. That means one day you might wake up with a lot of responsibility, but the next day you might be nobody. So that is actually a very rude shock to a lot of men. So we're talking about a step down role, a gradual transition to retirement so that you could actually mentor the youth or taking on more project-based roles. So I thought that that could help the men to plan the retirement better. And also actually they stay connected and also emotionally engaged with the younger generation.
That's interesting tips there. Well, also the study involves many other regions, not just Singapore. We have Canada, China, Hong Kong, and the UK. What differences stood out for you when it came to different cultures and aging and retirement?
Actually, one very interesting thing that we found is that the core is, most of them, the priorities is actually family, health, and financial security. The difference is how they balance their priority depending on the culture, the cost of living, as well as the local politics. I give you an example. The top priority in Hong Kong is actually financial management, whereas in Singapore, it's family. And one of the things echoed by the Hong Kong study is that because they are so financially stretched because of housing and other issues, so they actually place this as top priority.
Well, before we go, Justina, do you have some final tips for our viewers, whether they are retirees or whether they have retirees in the family? How can they cultivate a more balanced, holistic way of living?
Okay, I think that let the seniors actually set the plot. Okay, I think that one message that I really want to bring across is that we should not be looking at seniors as what more can we do for them. It's how else can we involve them. There should be a mindset shift from participation to authorship. Let them actually be the author of their own story, and we help them actually stay connected as well as independent in ways that speak to them.
Justina, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. I've been speaking with Associate Professor Justina Tan from the Singapore University of Social Sciences.